I've left Red Dot United just a couple of weeks after the elections, and in this video I'll explain to you my reasons. So I've been catching up on work, on business, catching up with family members, going to a couple of family events, catching up with my partner as well, because for the last 1 year I've been focused on opposition politics, and I finally made the decision to go independent for now. And from the feedback that I've gained after the elections, meeting up with friends, acquaintances, so the feedback has been good thus far. I was initially disappointed at my own score. People who were interested in my campaign, they saw my speeches, they felt that I did well, particularly in my speeches. I've carried myself well, and they have edged me to carry on. I mean, it's not confirmed that I'll be running 2030, but I've left Red Dot United, and there are a couple of reasons why. Well, the first reason is that I will be able to speak up on issues that may not be too popular, that I think most opposition parties, except for the People's Power Party, stood up for. And mind you, I was volunteering for the People's Power Party for a good 2 years. So that would be vaccine safety. Vaccine safety is something that should be questioned because it's fundamentally life and death. And recently, the FDA, Food and Drugs Administration in the US, have announced that the COVID mRNA vaccines for Moderna and Pfizer, they have to include heart attack risk on the labels. So this is very recent. As recent as last week, I will cite the article. So the FDA has directed that. So that begs the question, right? Where were the labels when you have had the whole population injected in the last 4 to 5 years? I'm pretty sure Singapore carries Pfizer and Moderna as well. Is MOH or HSA going to label them, or is there going to be informed consent moving forward? So these are questions that are important, not because I'm anti-vaccine. I've got vaccinated twice, non-mRNA COVID vaccine, so please don't call me an anti-vaxxer, because medical decisions such as vaccination is not reversible. Secondly, I think there's a difference when it comes to approach towards campaigning. In Red Dot United, if you notice one of my speeches, I was running off on billionaires.
Meanwhile, the billionaire class lives in freehold homes, drives luxury cars, and passes down wealth.
That was a script that all candidates had to follow to the T. So as someone who is an entrepreneur, number one, ideologically, I do not hate billionaires. From a policy standpoint, I think that we have to take a stand against overdoing tax havens, influx of hot money that indirectly or directly leads to an increase in cost of living in terms of COE, housing prices. We have to work on high-tech manufacturing. We are behind Taiwan, Korea. I think we used to have a booming semiconductor industry. As an entrepreneur, as someone who is into wealth creation, who wants to be wealthy, I do not hate on the billionaire class. So just to clarify that, I do not want to be limited to scripts when I give my nomination day speeches, to rally speeches, to how I face the press. As a candidate, as a politician, as an aspiring, whether ruling party politician or opposition party politician, you have to be able to speak on the cuff. You have to have your policies. You have to be able to face the press. Okay, let's move on to the next topic, which is electoral strategy. So as you guys may or may not know, I contested in Jurong East Bukit Batok GRC, which is a 72.5% proportional Chinese residents GRC. When you are in political parties, at least from my experience, there is this thing called the election committee where you may not be involved in it at all. It makes all the decision when it comes to fielding of candidates to elections. If I go independent, it will just be me. I get to choose the SMCs that I'll be contesting in, and I would have higher control of my output by my own work, whether I walk the ground, whether I engage with residents, whether I go to door to door, and I will be able to control the contents on the flyer. In my experience with Red Dot United, I don't think they had the best of electoral strategy, and I'll explain why. JEBB is a 72.5% Chinese representation residents GRC. Mr. Ravi Philaman, the SecGen of RDU, said in one of our press conferences that he would like to signal a higher Malay-Muslim community representation in Jurong East Bukit Batok, and hence we fielded 2 Malay-Muslim candidates alongside another Indian candidate. Well, this is nothing racist, but it's a 72.5% electoral representation of Chinese. So by that logic, we should have at least 3 Chinese candidates. And by fielding 3 minority candidates, I have to disagree with that electoral strategy, okay? And the reasons that he's put forth in the Straits Times article, which covered our press conference, is that Jurong East Bukit Batok is the Geylang Serai of the West. And well, the statistics is as so that there is a 15.3% Malay Muslim representation in JEBB GRC. It's above the national average of 13.5% as reported by the Straits Times. However, Nisun GRC, where the SecGen himself was fielded, Ravi fielded himself there, has a higher proportion of Malay Muslim representation, which is 18.5%. And I quote a Straits Times article here. Nisun actually had an 18.1% Malay Muslim representation. So I think that it wouldn't be disingenuous to actually field two Malay Muslim candidates in that GRC as opposed to Jurong East Bukit Batok GRC if you were sincere about Malay Muslim representation, or you would like to signal that you want to lend a greater weight to the Malay Muslim community. So these are the discrepancies. I would not go further to speak for Red Dot United. So if you guys are curious as to why they do such electoral strategy, feel free to email them. So lastly, I would like to talk about politicizing race and religion. So as independent, I get to take stances that I agree with the People's Action Party. For example, during the campaign, Prime Minister Lawrence Wong said that we shouldn't bring identity nor racial politics into campaigning. And this is something I would echo as well, and I would agree as well. So you may or may not have known, one of my teammates, Liana Demira, she made a police report during our campaign in Jurong East Bukit Batok about anonymous comments regarding a troll internet comment on her TikTok account making fun of her weight, I would guess, and trying to be funky about race. I do not condone that behavior, but I think as a public figure or aspiring opposition politician, you have to be able to take the heat when it comes to anonymous comments. I've read some of Reddit. They've called me funny names such as Mr. Issues because of the way I pronounce issues as issues during my nominations day speech.
In this election, the issues are clear.
They've criticized my running of dating consultancy to equate that to manipulation of women. So, well, I take that all in good stride, and maybe sometimes it's what they call the PAP's IB. I have no idea, okay? Well, I genuinely feel that the party and herself didn't really consider things well enough when they decided to let the police report be made. It's my opinion that whether intended or not, that gave off a wrong signal. We should not bring race and identity into politics, and much less a general elections campaign. So I'll just conclude by saying that by being non-partisan, I get to agree with the PAP when it makes sense to my core values, and I think it makes sense for the betterment of Singaporeans or Singapore in general. And I don't have to stick to party lines, and I don't have to get myself mixed up with signaling the things that may be intended or not. So moving forward, I'd like to conclude by saying that it's not 100% that I will run in 2030. It depends on a multitude of factors, and the preparation for running a general election spans 3 to 4 years. It's not as simple as just putting down a deposit, or at least I think to have a competitive and genuine bid for Member of Parliament, you have to get ready at least 3 to 4 years ahead of time. You have to engage residents, you have to have your social media, you have to have product market fit, I would like to call it in business. You have to have people believing in you, supporting you, volunteering you, willing to donate to you for you to be able to run a proper bid for Member of Parliament. So all this will be dependent on Singaporeans themselves, whether they want me to have a contest in 2030 itself. But then again, I would be putting my message out there, and that's all for now. This is Marcus Neo, and I hope to see you in the next video.